Don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger here, okay? That's all I am. At Heartland College Sports, I'm Pete Mundo. Thanks for joining us. It's Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, who keeps bringing up, or at least willingly addressing, the idea of Big 12 expansion. This is not going to be me just riffing for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes about things I have no information on. I am just going to tell you what Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, said when asked by the Arizona Board of Regents about expansion. Per John Wilner, in a report here in the last couple of days, Brett Yormark told the Arizona Board of Regents on Big 12 expansion, quote, "I always have optionality as a conference. I will continue when the time is right." That's the quote from Brett Yormark when asked about expansion. I will continue when the time is right. That means he's looking at it. That means he is more than willing to take a chance, although I don't think it's much of a chance. He's just ready. He's wanting to dive in head first. He is willing to basically help pick apart the ACC whenever Florida State and Clemson decide they're done, they're out. That's what Brett Yormark said right there. There's nowhere else to go. He's not going to look at group of 5 schools. Maybe he's still got this weird infatuation with Gonzaga. I hope that's gone. Maybe UConn is still something in the back of his mind, but if they lose Danny Hurley, forget it. No interest there. So then you say to yourself, what is he talking about? When Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, says, quote, on expansion to the Arizona Board of Regents, I always have optionality as a conference. I will continue when the time is right. He's waiting. That's what Brett Yormark is doing. Brett Yormark is waiting for the right time to poach. He is waiting for the right time to take advantage of the ACC's issues. There's nowhere else to go. He's not going to the Big Ten or the SEC. He's waiting on the ACC. That's what this is about for Brett Yormark. And he's the one who keeps bringing this up. This comes a week after I asked him directly about expansion because he said the Big 12 was open for business. This came in a virtual press conference that was done 2 Fridays ago. And Brett Yormark said at the time that the Big 12 is open for business. The official quote is, when I took this job, I said the Big 12 is open for business. And I guess you could say we're open for business now more than ever before. So I asked Brett Yormark to his face at that press conference. I said, are you actively exploring Big 12 expansion? His answer was, no, I'm not. We explore every and all opportunity to create value for our members, for our student athletes. It's what we've been doing since I onboarded, and we'll continue to have that mindset. That's what he said to me when I asked him directly about the expansion. But then he says to the Arizona Board of Regents, I'll continue when the time is right. So we're just sitting here now saying, when is the time right? The time will be right when Florida State and Clemson figure out how they get out of the ACC as quickly as they can. And then the ACC will be officially the Titanic. Teams will be bouncing and jumping left and right and hoping there's a lifeboat somewhere for them. That's what's going to happen. And that's where Brett Yormark says, come on in. Virginia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, Miami, whatever the makeup is, that's what Brett Yormark is waiting for. He is basically just sitting back, kicking his feet up, drinking I don't know. What does Brett Yormark seem like to you? Whiskey on the rocks kind of a guy? I don't see him being a martini guy. Some of you suggesting that. No. He's not a martini guy. He's a whiskey on the rock. Come on. He's a Heartland guy now. All right. His New York City days are in the past. He's spending time out here. Maybe he's a Busch Light guy for all I know. I don't know. Many of you in Iowa probably hoping he is. But either way, he's sitting back. He's kicking his feet up. He's having a drink. And he's saying, you guys tell me when you're ready. Because we all know what's going to happen here. We all know how this plays out. Florida State, Clemson, if they don't go to the SEC, the Big Ten says, come on in, we'll take you. We'll take some presence and some footprint in the SEC's footprint, and then that conference starts to collapse. That's how this plays out. It's the only option. So Dan putting up on YouTube Live right now, Brett Yormark's not doing any expansion until the ACC drama is done unfolding. Yeah, that's exactly right. But here's the thing. And Dan adds to his comment on YouTube, even then, there might only be Florida State and Clemson that get out. Possibly, but you know as well as I do, Dan, once that Pandora's box opens and once those two get out, the entire contract between the ACC and the institutions is going to feel null and void because Florida State and Clemson will have fought them in court. So I don't see this ending pretty where those two schools just go, and it's similar to, let's say, Texas A&M and Nebraska leaving the Big 12 almost 15 years ago. I don't think the rest of the ACC is just going to say, you know what, that's okay, we'll be fine without them. I think then, especially when you got a guy like Yormark in charge, people are going to smell blood in the water, and they're going to take advantage. The old guard in college football, the Bob Bowlesbys of the world, probably would have just sat back and said, let the ACC be the ACC. Let's honor the institutions. Let's honor the conferences of college football. Could you imagine a college sports world without the Atlantic Coast Conference? Oh, we need an ACC. We don't want to ruffle the feathers. Those days are over. You got to put on your big boy pants. The days of the old guard running college athletics, the guys who were slapping each other's backs for the last 30 years, those days are done. Yormark was not hired to be a part of the good old boys club. He was not hired to backslap at various levels of college sports. He was hired to be the shark that he's been on behalf of the Big 12. He was hired to take no prisoners. He was hired to be aggressive. He was hired to cut the line on the TV deal, which he did 2 years ago successfully, which basically led to the collapse of the Pac-12 and the success of the Big 12. That's what he's been brought here to do. He's done it wildly successfully so far, and I don't see any way that it slows down anytime soon or it changes anytime soon. So that's where this whole thing is going. By the way, if you're joining us right now on the show, hit the thumbs up as many of you are with us live. We appreciate that on YouTube, on Twitter, on the podcast, and of course on our radio affiliates. Thank you for being here. But on the YouTube page especially, hit that thumbs up. Thank you, guys. That makes a big difference. And make sure you are subscribed to our channel and also to our podcast here at Heartland College Sports if you're not catching us on the radio show. So all that being said, I'm looking at some of your comments right now, and Daniel notes that Brett Yormark has already done more than Bob Bowlesby. Let's address that for a few minutes. Since we're sitting here in June, we've got some time. It's the off season. Although I did order my Phil Steele magazine this weekend. I can't wait for that to come. It's now football season, by the way. Big 12 baseball season ended. Great run by West Virginia and Kansas State. They come up short in the super regionals, but hey, it's now football season in my book. So Brett Yormark undoubtedly has done more than Bob Bowlesby. Bob Bowlesby was a very reactionary commissioner, and in large part, he did let Texas push him around a little bit too much. Now, I think 99% of commissioners in Bob Bowlesby's shoes would have allowed Texas to push him around a little too much. Texas is used to pushing around people. That's what they do. Yormark's kind of the first guy who stood up to Texas and told him to pound sand. And good for him, by the way, on doing that. But the old guard in college football was not going to tell Texas to take a hike. What I will say for Bob Bowlesby is that when it was looking grim, when it was looking like this league, the Hateful Eight, as they were branded, was not going to make it, when the Big 12 looked like it was on its deathbed, Bob Bowlesby, to his credit, reacted quickly. There is no Brett Yormark without Bob Bowlesby's reaction to the OU Texas departure. So we do have to give Bob Bowlesby credit where he's due. He was not the best commissioner. I mean, he was better than some of his predecessors by a mile. Not hard to do, but still better than some of his predecessors. And when this league was on life support, he did move quickly. And by the way, he went to war with ESPN. Don't forget that. September, October of 2021, lawsuits were getting threatened left and right. He was just talking smack all over ESPN, blaming them for this whole deal. So he fought. And he got those 4 new teams, Houston, UCF, BYU, Cincinnati. He moved quickly on them. And there is no Brett Yormark legacy. There is no Brett Yormark. There is no Big 12 without Bob Bowlesby's handling of the Big 12 in 2021. So I agree with that assessment. However, the people that want to crap on Bob Bowlesby all night and all day, I don't think that's entirely fair based on Bowlesby's reactionary handling of the Texas OU departure, which caught everybody off guard. I mean, that was a stunner to everybody and anybody in college football. I will never forget sitting at my office and seeing the news from the Houston Chronicle, which, by the way, that story, for those of you that don't know, was leaked to the Houston Chronicle by Texas A&M. That was Texas A&M's last stand to try to get basically public outcry to prevent OU and Texas from joining the SEC. That's how that went down. It was a leak from A&M World to the Houston Chronicle because this was like, we can't have this. We don't want Texas back in our league. And that was their last chance to try to derail the whole thing. Of course, it didn't work for them, but that's how that all went down in that late July 2021 article in the Houston Chronicle. So it just, I like going down memory lane a little bit, and that's certainly a way to do that. So meantime, I'm looking at some of your comments here, and Dan notes that this feels like the Pac-12 all over again with the ACC. The only difference is the media deal locking them in, or maybe not. That's exactly right. Maybe not's the key. Maybe not. Listen, if Florida State and Clemson want to get out of this deal, there's no doubt in my mind they have the attorneys that are going to get them out of this deal. I don't think that's even up for consideration. They will figure out a way to get out of this deal. It's just a matter of when. And that ties back to what Brett Yormark said to the Arizona Board of Regents. I will continue when the time is right. And the question on when the time is right is up to the attorneys involved with Florida State and Clemson and how that case plays out. That's what this is all about. Jason notes that he has buyer's remorse on some of the new schools like UCF. Hey, Jason, I love you, buddy. I really do. You're here. You're joining us live on the show, but you're dead wrong on buyer's remorse with UCF. Of the 4 new schools, UCF may be the best addition of the 4 in 5 years. When you look at football success, when you look at basketball success, all right, fine. Houston in basketball, Cincinnati in basketball, BYU in basketball, all were better than UCF last year. But UCF is building the basketball program. They've got a ton of money. And in 20 years, with the undergraduate enrollment size that they have, there are going to be enormous sums of money coming back into that program just because of the sheer numbers of people who graduate UCF every year. They are one of the largest, if not the largest, undergraduate population in America. It's a great long-term investment for the Big 12. And UCF football was a couple of plays away from going 8-4, 9-3 last year. Don't forget that. They blew the Baylor game, the OU game. They had opportunities last year. And a couple of bounces either way, and we're looking at this UCF team under Gus Malzahn going in the 2024 much differently than many people are right now. I still think they're a dark horse in this conference. I believe that UCF right now is a team, as we sit here in June, that as we all start doing our homework over the next 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, we'll look back in late August and say, why didn't we talk more about UCF earlier in the summer? That's where I believe we're all going to be on the UCF nights when this is all said and done. I'm Pete Mundo. Thanks for being here on Heartland College Sports. Hey, if you haven't, make sure you're signed up for our forums. They are free. We have a lot of Utah fans joining our forums at heartlandcollegesports.com. And I got to tell you, they're pretty great. All right. The Utah big mouth on social media is very different from the cordial, pleasant, polite Utah fans that I'm meeting on the Heartland College Sports forums. So join the forums. They're free. It's a cool way to interact with other Big 12 fans. And we're going to be doing some special things with those of you on the forums as the football season rolls along. So get on there. I'm on there all the time. The staff's on there all the time. It's a great way to interact and have some fun as we get closer to football season here at Heartland College Sports. Just click on that forums tab at the top of the homepage or on your mobile device as well. It's very simple. So let me spend a few minutes here on Heartland College Sports talking about Texas, specifically Lambos and Longhorns. Have you seen this? I'm Pete Mundo. Thanks for joining us. This came down over the weekend. It went viral. It was a video of the recruiting weekend at the University of Texas for the football program. And it had a line of Lamborghinis just outside the facilities as these recruits were walking in. And obviously, it's a partnership with a local Lamborghini dealer, and these recruits are oohing and eyeing, and they're filming with their phones and the whole deal. And I watched it, and I said to myself, I hate it. But here's where I struggle, because I hate myself for hating it, because I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. But then I'm also looking at it, and if you haven't seen it, it went viral. You can find it. And I'm thinking to myself, is this what college sports is all about? Is this what we want college sports to be all about? And my answer is no. But then the other thing I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself is, this is the free market doing its thing. This is Texas and its big boosters and donors and its massive amounts of revenues saying we will do whatever it takes to appeal to these young people, these young men, and get them here to play football. Whatever it takes. And they're willing to do it. And by the way, I got to add this too. Texas's problem was never recruiting. As much as we all want to say this is going to give Texas a competitive advantage, Texas's problem was never recruiting. Whether it was Charlie Strong, the end of the Mac Brown era, Tom Herman, now that Steve Sarkisian, these guys all recruited top 5, top 10 classes every year. There were no issues with how Texas recruited. We can't sit here and say, well, Texas now is a top 5 class. What are we going to do about it? No, they always did have top 5 classes, top 10 classes. There was one year, I want to say, maybe the first under Herman, where they kind of were maybe like top 20, but that's it. They were always in that top 10. So now you look at it and you say, what's changed? Well, Steve Sarkisian's getting the right guys, and now, because of name, image, likeness, you can basically get and you'll do whatever you want, and you can roll out the red carpet with as many Lamborghinis as you please, and there's nothing anybody's going to do about it. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. You know, I'd like to see some more guardrails. I'd like to see, of course, a situation where a guy is locked into some kind of an official contract. I'd like to see all that. I do think the sport needs it. But I'm not going to sit here and be offended by Lamborghini sitting in a parking lot. Because, by the way, in the old days, if the top guys wanted a Lamborghini, they could probably find a way to get one. They could probably figure out a way to get that Lamborghini and make someone pay for it. Wasn't them, wasn't mama, wasn't dad. Somebody was paying for that Lamborghini. We just all looked the other way. So I can't get offended. And there's a lot of people in my space in particular who are getting offended. You know, I mean, I'm seeing it all over the place. And I'm like, guys, we all knew this was going on. We all knew how this was happening. Now it's just out in the open. Now it's just for all of us to see. So let's sit back. Let's relax. Let's not be petty about this. Let's also not be jealous because you got 18, 19-year-old guys driving nicer cars than any of us are ever going to drive. I don't much care. I don't care about the Lamborghinis. I just want, like, if you go to a school, put them on a 2-year contract, lock them into a 2-year contract. Like, let's treat this like the pros And let's not have every year free agency forever and ever and ever, and free agency sometimes happening in season, which there were rumors of last year. Guys were asking to get paid before big games. That can't stand. That can't continue. That's completely ridiculous. So let's just get the guardrails on the contractual side of the players. Let's get the players getting paid by the colleges. This NIL stuff is nonsense. Charles Barkley's now calling it out, saying he's sick of getting hit up for money for NIL from Auburn, his alma mater. Just get the schools with their TV revenues paying the players. And by the way, yes, that's probably going to result in schools having to cut some sports or at least cut some travel for certain sports. So be it. That's how this has to work. The current model can't continue. The donor class is not going to allow it to continue. They want their names on buildings. They don't want to hear about how, oh, well, I paid that guy back in, 2024. No one really is going to have any proof of that. They want to see their name on buildings, not signing checks to players. So that's got to figure itself out. But I'm not going to kick up and start freaking out about Lamborghinis in parking lots. I'm not going to do it. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Hit that thumbs up right below the video. We appreciate you being here. Sign up for those Heartland College Sports forums as well. Like I said, a lot of Utah fans on there, so we need some new folks from around the Big 12 joining us and participating in that conversation. We love the Utah fans, by the way. They've been awesome. I'm just saying, I've been surprised with how many of them have come up into the forums. We've got a lot of content that's going to be coming your way. It is now football season. Make sure you are subscribed to the show, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great rest of the day. Go Big 12.